Hello and welcome to another edition of NCI Live. I'm your host, David Groth. I'm a technical solutions specialist here at Network Center in Fargo, North Dakota. Joining me today is Zane Allen, a principal technologist at Pure. And we're going to be talking about how much storage is enough. Hey, Zane, how are you doing today?
Great, David. Thank you for having
Good.
me.
Yes, no, absolutely. We're happy to have you. Thanks for coming by. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we are, in fact, live. So if you have any questions for Zane or myself and want to talk anything about this topic or just interject and throw some things at it, we'll do our best to answer those questions and we'll have some fun. So with that said, Zane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a lovely day here
Awesome.
in the Northwest.
Yeah.
You get some of those in the summer. So,
Yeah. Whereabouts are you in the Northwest?
I live right adjacent to Seattle. So it's called
Mhm.
Woodinville, kind of Kirkland area. So yes, we're
No,
have many
my
Costco's
brother
around me.
lives out in that area.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
my brother lives out in that area. I don't remember the burg he lives in, but it's out. Yeah, it's just outside of Seattle.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Beautiful, beautiful in
Here,
the summer. Very green. I'm originally from Southern California, so very different than what I grew up in. You know,
gotcha.
all
Yeah.
sand, all beach, no water. Too.
No, I just moved here from there, so
Yeah.
yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of it here. What
Sounds good.
now? You work for Pure. What is Pure? What kind of a company is Pure?
Well, Pure Storage is the official title, so it's got storage in the name. We do have to
Hmm.
tell people we're not the one with the roll-up doors where you stick your stuff and forget about it.
Sure, sure. I
But
and I yes,
we are the same
I should
color.
have mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm just saying. So it's in the name. But many of us, especially on my team, like to think of it differently.
Mhm.
We think of it as more of it's data services, right? We're a platform
Sure.
that offer those data services. And early on in the conception, the founders they tried to make storage simple. you know Storage is hard, and they wanted to solve all the problems for the customer so you could kind of just utilize it so you can get on with your day, get on with the work you really need to do, and don't have to
Sure.
have a degree in the actual setting up disk pools and what kind of disks I need here and that for this type of workload. Really just something that's adaptive to all the workloads in the environment.
Mm.
The iPhone of storage is what they tried to kind of compare it to in the beginning, and we try to stick to that ethos, if that makes sense.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Some of the, and you're right. I should have said that because it could also be like the water filter with the, the
Yeah.
UPUR with the,
I
yeah.
think that's why we're
Oh, don't
not
want to
Pure.
confuse
I
that.
don't think they'd let us
Yeah,
just change our name to
exactly.
that for that reason.
Pure
Yeah,
storage.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So apologies all around.
Oh no, not at
So
all.
that said, no, I love the company. I love seeing the products that you have. Let's talk a little bit more about your actual role at Pure. What do you do for them?
So I'm on a team called the Principal Technologist.
Hmm.
When I first joined, and I've only been here a little over 2 years, we were Principal Technology Strategists, and the roles kind of evolved. Overlay could be a way to explain it, but really we're a team of specialists, and I work with, you know, trying to really focus more on use cases and outcomes for the customer, not just product, right? We're not just selling boxes
Yep.
here. We're trying to sell outcomes and solutions. So I work with
Right.
a team of others that we focus on, that a team that focuses on analytics. So I have somebody on my team, or my pod, as we call it, as we focus on a sales region, and I have one dedicated to modern data protection. And then I sit
Sure.
somewhere in the middle to kind of address the portfolio. So when we're going in to talk to customers, I can, take other perspectives, bring in specialists as needed, see
Right.
where deeper we can help in the customer's environment, and really just kind of add that perspective. But we do focus on regions, so we're very very active in the sales teams. For in my case, the West and the commercial accounts,
Mhm.
and then the other half of it, to kind of make a long story short, is we take the voice of the field and we bring that to the product managers and kind of, what do we
Mhm.
see, what is being asked for, what are the trends, um,
Mhm.
RFE process, get involved in, observation feedback, and then you sprinkle a little bit of, kind of marketing things, where I go out and do some, I don't call it enablement, but more evangelism, right? Kind of get the word
Yep.
out and drum up excitement.
It's very funny that you mentioned that because that is almost exactly my job
Okay.
description.
Okay.
Except in a more general sense, when it comes to technologists, you've got the evangelist part of it, and you talk about solutions. That's why I have solutions in the
Yep.
name.
Yep.
I just kindred spirits at the very
Yeah.
least, can
It's
go in and say, look, this is the problem you have, and come to it from that perspective. Like, this is the issue, the problem, this is what you want. Okay, now let's throw part numbers, products,
right.
prices,
Yeah.
and all the other things at it to come up with a whole
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. Let's talk about
So,
the outcome you're trying to get to, the solution you're trying to get to. Then we can talk about the how,
yeah,
right? And maybe
yeah,
that's even a different conversation with two different teams, right? These
it,
guys will get
it can
together
be
and do the how.
sometimes. Yeah,
Exactly.
and to be blunt, sometimes it's a how and how not. Like,
Sure.
maybe, and I'm just going to pick on you for a second. Sometimes the best companies are the ones that can say, we're not the right fit.
Mhm.
Say, in as much as you have a complete product line. I love your product line, by the way. I got to say that.
Thank you.
But sometimes the best companies are the ones that can say, we're not the right fit. You might want to look at some different solution. And I have seen that with your company.
Yeah.
So I have to kudos for that.
No, that's
So,
very yeah, just like I learned early on with an SE, if you don't know the answer to something, tell me to find out, right? Don't just
yep,
kind of make something fit where it shouldn't fit. But that's
yep.
especially true when Pure's evolution was very much it always had the vision of kind of Flash for all data center. I didn't even mention that we're
Hmm.
never been anything but Flash, and now we actually make our own direct Flash modules,
Hmm.
buying the NAND direct. Um,
Hmm.
but we still kind of landed at that higher tier 0, tier 1. That's
Hmm.
changed as recently. We're actually have something kind of for every SLA, but you're right. Even back and then, it's like, we fit here. You're going to buy
Hmm.
something else for that other use case. And
Sure,
here's people we work with, and this is what we'd recommend, or with our partners. So you're
sure.
absolutely right. That's the right way to go.
Yep, absolutely. So to talk about, kind of pull it forward a little bit, and your involvement, but then your expertise, but then also moving into Pure and storage in a more general sense. Um, how long have you been working in storage? And just kind of briefly.
So really, my career on this side of the house, if you will, in the sales organization
Hmm.
manufacturers spans about 8 years now. I
Okay,
was in IT for over 12, so I was all the way from the starting point to the
sure,
directorship. So a lot of
sure,
my storage involvement was during those times in different organizations where I managed help desks and networks, and storage was a very
absolutely.
chief important part of what I did. Um,
Where
but
everything lives, right?
where everything
So,
lives, yeah. And
yeah.
then then from some consulting roles and things like that. So I've seen a lot of different on the evolution of it, especially virtualization on top of it. And
Yeah,
then my previous role, I was in data protection at the company, data protection. So
interesting.
we didn't, the way I like to look at it, we didn't sell storage directly, but we did, we was a software only product. So we didn't do anything without storage. So understanding the profiles of each, the benefits of each, the disadvantages, how to work with those was kind of that, and the different virtualization technologies and cloud technologies is
Sure,
chiefly what I
sure.
focused on. So
So
adjacent,
that said, I mean,
yeah,
we've both been around the block. I mean, it's fair to say that in that span of a career, and 10 to 20 years, there's been a lot. Storage is not the storage of 10 to 20 years ago.
no,
I mean, even 10 years ago, there was a huge change, right? What what do you see as the evolution? Can you just give me the high strokes? What, in your
yeah,
opinion, what has
yeah,
changed
we
in storage technologies?
sure, yeah, we don't we
Just
don't
like
we don't
boom,
use
boom, boom, boom,
magnetic
boom.
drums anymore, right? Or
Hmm.
so I have seen in my long career, obviously. I mean, I don't go back to magnetic drums. I joke about that, but I do remember,
Hmm.
as a kid, booting from floppies, and you never need any more than you're never going to need more than a meg, that kind of thing. But
Yep. Oh, right. Yep.
really, in the last, well, and actually up to now, maybe in the last 5 years, 10 years, these transition from large pools of spinning disk, magnetic drives to and I'll say tape, but I think tape is actually still going to be something that sits around. Let's get back to that. But to hybrid systems where flash started becoming prevalent,
Hmm.
to kind of what we see the future, and the way like Pure addresses it, with where we address the NAND directly, more like I said, like an
Sure.
iPhone. Um,
Right.
when SSDs kind of hit the market, it was how do we utilize this NAND? How do we put it in there? And it was first addressed as let's just treat it like a disk, right? We know how to use a disk. We know how to put
Yeah.
disk systems. We know how to put RAID on top of that. Let's treat this SSD as such. You know, it's kind of commodity. That had its own set of problems, right? I mean, but it was
Right.
great. Even Pure started out that way, where you got to address, you know, because each little SSD has to kind of take care of its own garbage collection and its, you know, its own wear leveling and all that. And so, you know, as those try to get bigger and more economical, you have to put more and more resources into them. You know, systems have to work with them. It kind of gets complicated. So, and you know, not to just talk in general sense, but you know, what kind of my company's done is address that by looking at flash as its own substrate. So this is really where we see the industry going: is utilize the flash for its benefits, address it directly. You know, the NAND is what I'm talking about. Kind of remove that old way of disks, and we really see a shift as NAND prices are coming down. Disk is really going to kind of it's already kind of leveled out, so it's really going to be, we believe, more economical to take this kind of approach, right? As so,
Would you say it's fair to say that over these generations, it's become a increase in capacity, an increase in speed of access, and somewhat of a decrease in complexity?
yeah,
Because if you look at the spinning discs, a lot of mechanical parts,
Mhm.
a lot of, you know, all kinds of the controller boards. I mean, I go back, like I do go back to the tape days.
Oh,
So, you
so
know,
do I.
the dual, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, all right, all right.
yeah,
So we're on the same
yeah,
page.
yeah,
But um so to that regard, as going forward, as you were mentioning, now we decrease the complexity. We're talking about just literally uh, the various pieces of the storage are getting simpler
yeah,
and easier to manage.
yeah.
A lot more software aspects of the storage that are then backed with hardware. Right? Fair
Right,
statement.
right, yeah, yes.
Yep.
Kind of co-developed together, right? You know, so
Right,
yeah,
correct.
purpose built.
They're a dual system. They're a homogeneous system that is designed to work together. Which again, that iPhone is a great example. It's a great parallel. The hardware and the software developed in tandem, but then also they're generally cheaper. They're generally the decrease in cost.
Yep.
Right.
Well, you can
I,
innovate on the software layer a lot easier. Like, and I come from a software
yep.
background, and
Right.
just utilize the hardware for what it's good for: storage,
Yep.
the read write ability, the access, the and you said the density, right? I can put, um, you know, as that you can put more and more in the same space, right? As NAND gets better and better
The
and better,
physical
physical
space.
space, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So,
Yep.
and power is becoming a real big problem as well. So,
Mm.
bigger and bigger systems, data is growing, doesn't go away. If I'm using spinning disks, those are larger and larger and larger, more moving parts. How am I going to make these drives more capacity? I got to put like what's the drive out there where they have a laser that kind of heats it up before it goes. It just gets more complex,
Oh.
more and more
Yep.
power, more and more heat, and that's, you know, it's not as sustainable for a lot of data
No.
centers, right? But
Yeah.
absolutely,
Exactly. I was looking at so I have a segue into our next main kind of the main meat and potatoes of what we're talking about here today.
okay,
So we talk about how much storage is enough. My first computer, the one that I actually used and remember working on, and I mean my own personal computer, was a TRS-80 Model 1.
okay,
Bought it at Radio Shack, and if you'll remember, the storage on that was a cassette tape.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You turned it on, it loaded BASIC, but to actually load a program, you stuck a tape in a tape player
yeah,
and you loaded it. Now, the storage capacity on that thing was in the kilobytes.
yeah. It was,
Uh,
and you were
we
never.
are up in, what's
I
that?
was gonna say you were never gonna need anything more, right?
No, 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 no. That is a ubiquitous statement.
Yeah,
You'll never need,
yeah,
you couldn't possibly need
yeah,
more than that.
yeah,
And then we got into the era of course, magnetic discs and MFM and all these other, the various disk technologies, SCSI, direct attached storage, and on and on and on.
yep,
Today we're up in the, I'd say, what a normal storage. We talk terabytes, but really we're starting to get into the petabytes
yeah,
and exabytes.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's talk then. Really, the big question, the question we're here today to answer: how much storage is enough? How do we put a box around that question and wrap it up with a bow?
How much storage is enough? That's a great question. And I think I don't know that I hear people say anymore. You're never going to need any more than that, um, because when I talk to customers, and I did this as well as an IT admin, is
Mm,
with traditional storage, I think you tend to strive to overbuy, but you never actually do overbuy because you don't really know
yeah.
what 5 year out's going to look like. So how much is enough? I think you need, and I think it really comes to finding a system. It's why I like where I work today. That's kind of flexible to grow with your needs. I think you can only kind of know what the immediate future is. You kind of plan over
Hmm.
time, maybe based on historical knowledge if you have it, or maybe what you bring to the table. Um, what I think is the danger and why customers will overbuy is, or tend to overbuy, and this is the same in cloud, I think, is you don't know what that growth's going to be, and you get kind of pigeonholed. Or I used to get into this where I have to make decisions in my data center on what projects I can do, what I can protect, what I can't protect, how I can protect it. How
Hmm.
recent I can keep data here because I might have to expand into something like cloud storage. And then
Right.
my SLAs get blown out and all that, based on what I'm strapped on my storage. Because I put myself out there as an IT director, I got the money and I can't go back and ask for any more. So
Right.
I think you need to plan a platform, or at least, so I hope this kind of answers it. It's not really a number, but you need a plan for a solution or a set of solutions or solution together that allows you
Hmm.
to kind of do that scale at a reasonable um, rate or a reasonable size when you
Sure.
need it, in a reasonable amount of time, as the company pivots, as things change in the environment, as data protection needs, as regulations come down that require you to keep more data.
Yep. Big one.
And
Yep.
and the other side of that, and I hope this answers your question, is planning for, and I mean, I know this isn't about ransomware and about data protection and all that, but it's a big part of it, because
It is.
what happens in an event if your data is encrypted, right? That storage
Hmm.
grows. What if you can't
Yep.
use that storage that you have, and I need something else on the side, or an alternative, right? Am I now buying a
Hmm.
whole nother data center that sits there and just waits? Do I have a
Hmm.
plan, a contingency plan to get that data? So it's a lot of different variables on what is enough. More about, your immediate needs, where you see your growth,
Right.
possible contingency plans on how you might change for company direction pivots, again, data protection needs, compliance, and then in a BCDR event, right? How am I going to address that? So
Sure.
it's a complicated discussion.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
And that's really why we're here today, is to
yeah,
talk about some of these ins and outs of the question. If I'm hearing you correctly, though, really the crux of the question is not so much how much, it's how do we approach the question itself.
yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we're talking about choosing something that can match those needs of how much storage.
Yeah,
So, like being able to say, okay, well, we need a petabyte. I'm just going to use 1 petabyte as an arbitrary number.
that's
So we
not
need
far
one
off.
petabyte. No,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah,
these days back when there was like, whoa, we got a petabyte, holy cow, and it
yeah.
took like a rack full of disks and
Oh,
all
it's
that.
it's it'd be insane.
Um,
Yeah.
Squirrel moment for a second. I watched a YouTuber. His name is Linus, and he's fairly popular. But he bought an old NetApp storage unit, and it was filled with 600 meg drives. And I don't remember what the total storage amount was, but it was something like, it was like 64 terabytes.
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah,
But for a NetApp unit, that's huge,
yeah.
right? Physically, and the power that it drew.
It's insane.
Oh
I
man.
know. I
It
know.
was 220 and it was just insane.
Heat
Now you
splitting
could do
off.
that. Hell, you could put that in a desktop,
Yeah.
you know?
I for
So,
sure I have that on one of
yeah.
these here somewhere. Yeah, with
Yeah.
a little
So,
NVMe drives. No, that's that's
but
that's absolutely true. It's the change um uh is real. So where systems are quarter to half a petabyte at least is what I
yeah.
really see in the well, and that, and I don't mean to get too off topic, but when you're planning
Mhm.
for storage is enough, I think traditionally back in the day it was project based too, maybe, right? So silos, right? And so that we're
Sure.
kind of getting away from that too, with systems that can kind of adapt to your workloads, like I was saying earlier.
Yep.
But I might buy,
Elastic and extensible, right?
yes, I might
They're
be,
able to.
yeah, I might need
Yep.
64 terabytes for this thing because I need high performance, boom, boom. But over
Yep.
here, I need 100, and over here, I need, and so now you're planning individually. So that's why you can't really grow maybe one individual system instead of kind of consolidating that down, which we see a big trend for that. I think cloud kind of drove that too. Maybe I can do these
Yeah.
little projects one off here. Again, that's still over provisioned.
Yep.
So yeah, that's another factor.
Sure. So let's talk about the technologies that are in use today. What technology, and we can absolutely let's use Pure as an example. What technologies are in use? What does Pure leverage for those storage? How does Pure approach the question of, okay, we have 1 petabyte,
Yeah.
but that's for our budget cycle for this year and maybe for the next year. What technologies? And I mean, like, spinning disks or whatever. What's the guts of it?
So I have a prop here. So I like to actually pass
Ah,
this around.
props.
So this isn't a
You're
current
the
one.
first prop.
Yeah.
You're the first prop. All right.
I take this in my bag everywhere. I was just at an executive briefing in our headquarters, and you always
Cool.
like to whip this out because get the hands on the product.
Nice.
So I keep talking about from a hardware sense that Pure addresses the NAND directly. So I don't know how well you can see this, but this is what we call our direct flash module. Evolution
Cool.
of Pure was always all flash, never disk, right? Kind of like looked at where others had failed in that environment. How can we be flash for all? Started at the top. And we did use SSDs, but we designed the software very early to leverage SSDs for the flash that they are, right? Kind of take into account the problems that are inherent with an SSD, like wear leveling, like they have a certain amount of writes that they can have, and in an SSD when it's trying to do its own garbage collection behind the scenes in that little flash behind that flash translation layer, if it's busy, how do I address that, right? How do I keep my system performance up? So we'd basically read from the RAID, the parity, to kind of let that disk go. So just kind of the first evolution, but now we address the NAND directly. We've plumbed all of our storage to be all NVMe internally. We can even go NVMe to the hosts if you choose. So you can have an all NVMe, but everything internal is that. So that's how we're kind of connected up and moving around. And direct to the flash. So now if you think about a Pure system, and we had a YouTube link on this once. The entire system itself, it's a system. That's actually what I'm trying to say. It's almost like the entire array, if you will, or the entire chassis, if you have multiple shells, is one giant SSD. We've removed the flash translation layer. We don't have to worry about drive manufacturers, drivers, and if there's a critical issue that what they will and won't update. Right? We can see and predict the performance of our NAND directly. Make updates on the software on the fly, push those out to customers,
Nice.
fix problems before they happen, predict when drives are going to fail. Because again, we're directly under the covers, right? There's nothing in the way of our since we make this directly.
Yep. The nice thing,
and it lets it grow. Oh, sorry. And then from a capacity standpoint, that is not one. We have 75 terabyte versions of these today, coming out in about a month in our new system. We'll have 150 next year. And then 300 is targeted for a few years after that. That's been publicly stated by our founder, right? So same form factor, same footprint, same power consumption relatively, because it's just static. So that's kind of the direction that Pure uses and the technology that underlines our whole portfolio, actually.
Very cool. I do want to take a real quick break here and just remind everyone that is watching that we are, in fact, again, live. Zane is a wealth of knowledge on the storage topic, as well as, we do his whole Pure product background. So if you do have questions, please feel free to message him. We're live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Feel free to message us those questions. So what I'm hearing then from the products you're talking about there is that you've got a lot of future proofing. We talked about the software and hardware being developed conjunctively. That's not quite that's a word. I'm patenting it here first.
I love it.
In conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
And then you've got the modules that your company has developed. But then when you think about it, most people say that hardware should be on a 3 to 5 year cycle, right? So in that, by developing both of those pieces, the advantage that you have in your particular case, and is that you've got the ability to work within that cycle, within any budgetary, IT budgetary
Hmm.
cycle, to be able to bring that forward, right? To be able
Absolutely.
to grow with that. How much storage do I really need? Well, in the interim, you have each budget cycle, you can plan for the upgrades, whether it be the software or the physical hardware itself, like the modules. But then for the whole cycle, you're in the system that you need, right?
Yep.
And
You
after 5 years,
you can be where you are
we
today.
don't know what 5 years
Yeah.
from now. I mean, 5 years ago, again, SSDs,
Yeah.
using SSDs. Now we're using NVMe modules ubiquitously, flash modules ubiquitously. So, right.
Oh
So in
yeah.
that 5 year cycle.
Yeah, Pure's built, I think, we're very modular. So
Hmm.
customers that have been with us 6, 8 years, we're kind of on the first iteration of it, like the F series
Hmm.
to the M array to the X array, and we have the C. We have other arrays now. As they used it, that storage just got better, meaning we can change out controllers to the latest modules. We can take the old SAS drives we have and change them with these NVMe and kind of
Sure.
move the data. The data is always online, non-disruptively. Put in the newer stuff, consolidate it down to even bigger data packs, so you don't have to grow your storage footprint just to get capacity size increases. So yeah, it's future proof. We just announced our newest revision 4.
Hmm.
There's actually going to be a new
Okay.
chassis for that kind of in the next year. The
Oh,
controllers flip
cool.
out, but the chassis that is today still has, I think, much more life in it. I think 2028 is what they expect it to last to, and then customers can
Okay.
upgrade to the new chassis. That new chassis is going to have 10 plus years of life, and then you can just change these parts out as we get better, as we consolidate.
Hmm.
And that's really the model. The lift and shift is gone. If I had this when I was an IT director, I would have bought it all day. I never have to do, as long as I'm happy with the product, I never have to take it out, migrate my data
Hmm.
to a new thing, which
Right.
even in the same company, that I
Yeah.
that's the value right there, right?
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever's had to lift storage cabinets, you know, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I don't like
No.
lifting storage
It's
cabinets. Those are a pain. The only thing I like
outages.
less than lifting storage cabinets is lifting UPSs.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So,
right. You drop those.
um,
Um,
oof, yeah.
no, it's
But I
to
only,
kind of like tie it up though. It's you can be where you are today, and then grow as you need to into the future. It's more that cloud-like operating model, if you will, that
right,
consumption-based operating model. But you don't
yeah,
lose your initial investment.
correct. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yep.
So we're getting towards the end of our time. I want to push forward and just get a couple of other nuggets of information
Okay.
here. The one being, I'll just throw them out here and then you can put them together how you wish. The one being really to bring all this together. We talk about how much storage is enough. What kinds of things would people bring into that calculation? Like, what all do we need to figure into that? How much storage is enough? And then on top of it, just a secondary question. There's been a huge amount of buzz, and it's just been in the last year, but it's ramped up exponentially in the last 6 months with discussions of AI.
Mm.
And I want to ask you about your company and your personal, really, experience with how that applies to storage. Are there any specific things you've seen or um, benefits to, and I'm talking we're talking about generational, what do they call it? It's generational AI, where it's using models to then pick and go for it. So I think you understand what my
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
okay. So yeah, what do people bring to so the conversation? How am I planning for storage? Obviously, it's what's your footprint today. What are
Hmm.
the immediate maybe projects or goals on the table? So like for instance,
Hmm.
customer recently, yeah, we need this much storage, but we know we're going to eliminate this in 6 years because we're going to put it here. Or I know I'm moving this to the cloud. I always kind of question that one, like, well, why don't you? And that's why I like Pure Storage, because we can be kind of, well, you can even buy us as a consumption based if you want, and then pivot to
Mm.
capital later.
You can hybrid it.
Yeah.
You can hybrid it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, hey, you only need for a year. Great. Do it just for a year. Pay for it. You find out that you really couldn't get there in a year because it took longer. Great. Now you have this storage and you can continue.
Mm. Yep.
So those sorts of things. We always ask for like change rate and things like that. I find that that's a very hard number to get. I get it. I was a customer as well. It's hard to know what your change rate is. You can look at what it is today, but you got to factor those in. And then, just if you know at all where your company's kind of going and plan for that growth. So again, having a system that's adaptive to that is, I think, why it's beneficial. I can grow if I need to very easily, but I can at least be where I am in the immediate future, and I can plan, next year, year and a half, 2 years, where I can see, and I'm not just making a guess.
Right.
The AI topic. So I'm not sure. So we do a lot around customers that use AI, and it's all about pipelines and delivering the data they need for those ingest places at a proper rate, right? So we have a FlashBlade product for that. I see even some of it on FlashArray. We're using some of these models even internally in the project. So I don't know if this is kind of where or in our product. I don't know if you're kind of going. So we have something called Pure One in the cloud. Now you may argue a lot of it's maybe more machine learning, but AI, but making predictions.
These days, I'm going to interrupt you. These days, the models of AI are being built on the lessons learned from machine learning, right? Yeah. Now they're taking into account a lot more pieces that can go to me when I say AI, heart of hearts, geek of geeks, I go to the Turing model.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
So we're not there, not even close.
Yeah.
And then from there we go into the Skynet model. So
yeah.
So, but we're not even close to that. So what we're talking about, the machine learning, and then we go from there into it's not modal AI, it's generational AI, I think is
generational AI. Yeah.
I apologize, I've forgotten the term, but basically it takes multiple sets of data into account, along with limitations and queries that are structured in normal format.
Make sense of that chaos, if you will, all those variables. Yeah,
yes, and it's large data sets, very large data sets.
And so Pure does that. I mean, there are customers that can't send their data, but we have a thing called Pure One. Everybody gets it. It's looking at all these data points, and then it's making sense of it, and then giving it back to the customer in actionable. So if there's any other critique that I hear about Pure a lot, is like, hey, I can't go see your direct CPU and your usage here and these little data points. And we're like, yeah, because the way we work, that would not make sense to you. It just wouldn't. A CPU load, because we're trying to do everything we can with it, doesn't mean the system's busy. So we take that analytics, that data, and then we put it into a number or a thing that lets you know, hey, this is your load on the array. You're getting to the limit. You're doing just fine.
In total.
Here's your spikes. Yep. Here's where it is. Oh, look, it looks like it's this workload, and we try to make determinations to do QoS on it. And now we're moving into, we can use the same kind of data to move into things for like malware, like anomaly detections, the heuristics around that. So it's taking all that chaos, all that data, like you said, and then modeling it in a way to be actionable on it. It's big. It's a big game changer.
I use my Google foo. It's called generative.
Generative.
Yeah, and we started with a G. Generative AI.
Nice.
It generates the data set. Yeah. Anyway.
And
no, that's actually fascinating because you're just generating a ton of data and a ton of metrics and a ton of information that you need to just wipe away the noise to get to, really what does an IT manager want? They want to know, how much storage do I have? How much am I using? How much is really garbage? Like that hasn't been accessed in a long time.
Exactly.
That could be maybe moved to a secondary set of storage.
Yeah. How many are just copies?
And then the AI could recommend that in theory.
Yeah. So. And then we have built-in modeling. Say, hey, I have this storage. I think I'm going to add this workload. What would that look like to me, Pure? Well, yeah, you'd be great. Just add some more capacity. No, you know what? If you go to the next controller size, you can run that workload on the same storage, or you can decide to build another system, right? So making choices for future.
Yeah, definitely. On your Pure One product, I highly recommend that anyone who's watching take a look at your Pure One product. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And I only see further developments coming down that road.
At the speed of cloud.
I really have a lot to ask and to go through more, but we are at the end of our time, and we've actually gone a few minutes over. But hey, you know what? We've had an exciting conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, I get a lot winded, but it's a very exciting topic. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. for those of you who are joining us who didn't get your questions in, you can definitely take a look at us and send us your questions. Feel free to visit our website at www.netcenter.net. You can email us those questions at info@netcenter.net, or visit us on any of our social media channels. Also, we go live at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time on both YouTube and LinkedIn. If you're joining us on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get notified when we do go live. Zane, it's been a great pleasure.
Likewise.
You're very knowledgeable on your topics, and I really do wish we could talk more.
Okay.
That maybe we'll have you come back again. We'll talk. We'll talk other products and other stories.
We could do a revisit. So, we're doing a big push into. We think disc is dead, and we have the products to back it, and that's just coming out. So maybe we'll have some more exciting stuff to talk about as that rolls out.
That'd be great. We'd love that. All right, awesome. And for those of you joining us, thanks for visiting with us today on NCI Live.
Thank you, everyone.